Hey, Austin, welcome to the show. Before
Hey,
we
Tim.
started recording, you mentioned something that you were doing in the past that was sucking you into the day to day and killing growth in the business. What was that?
Yeah, really, it was my involvement in the business was so deep in every aspect that I found that employees were constantly coming to me for everything. I couldn't turn around without a question.
Yeah, it's a very common problem that I hear, especially as businesses grow. So let's dig into that a little bit. What specifically were you doing, and how was that affecting the company's growth?
Well, I have a very open relationship with all of my employees, really treat them more like family. And so they're very comfortable with me and comfortable with asking questions. And in our business, I kept everything so close to the vest that I was the warehouse manager, I was the ordering manager, I was the sales manager, I was doing the payroll and doing all the accounting. And so doing all of those things, I wasn't allowing them to have enough ownership in
Hmm.
their jobs, I think, to make decisions without feeling like they had to come to me first.
Yeah. And so what was the impact to the company's growth of you wearing all those hats and
Well,
that
I
having
mean,
to get it through you?
I would say throughout that process of kind of relinquishing some of that control and giving more ownership to the salespeople, to my office manager, to my warehouse crew, throughout that process, what I was learning to do was learning to trust them a little bit more. In terms of growth, we were on a good growth plane the entire time, but I had really outside of work, no home life,
Ah,
always just tied to the job constantly.
yeah.
And I do think because of that, also missing some of the aspects of the business that I couldn't see because I was so close to it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the home life. What was the impact to you personally?
Well, I have 4 kids and a wife.
Okay.
And I love them all dearly, and they are very supportive of me. They always have been. And I like to return that favor by being supportive of them and the things that they want to do as well. And when you're sucked into the business daily in the way that I was, you end up missing out on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Vacations don't happen nearly as often. I would say we've been on more vacations in the last 3 or 4 years than we probably went on in the first 14 years of our marriage.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly business ownership has a bit of a burden, especially in the beginning. So while you were in that messy middle moment, what'd you realize that had to change and what'd you start doing differently?
Well, the first thing was, I was the inventory system.
Mm,
So I did all the ordering. I knew what we had in, I knew what we had coming. I was constantly checking to make sure that things were coming for customers, that it was going to be right. So I was so involved in that process that it was nearly impossible for anybody to have the information that they needed. So the
right.
first step was realizing that we were way too big to not have a point of sale and inventory system. That
Yeah.
was the first step to that, a little bit of freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
So once we had that in place, now the salespeople have a lot more tools at their disposal, right? They can see what we have in a product. They can see what we want to get out of it.
Yeah.
But the second step in that process was also giving them ownership in it. So I have never been part of a very strict corporate background, always been in small business, family business. And so, giving the salespeople ownership to say, hey, look, I want you to sell. I want you to make money. We've got to make money too, but you have to take some ownership in this. So if somebody's pushing for a better price or asking for things like, I'm going to give you the leeway to say yes, to get this done and to feel like you're doing the best thing that you can do for your customer. Because ultimately, that's what we want. We want the customer to win. And if the customer wins, then I believe we win too.
Well, thank you for sharing. I'm glad to hear that you've made some progress on that and you've been able to take some vacations by delegating some of those things and using some systems to automate some stuff. Austin, tell us what's the name of your company? What do you guys do? How do you help
Yeah.
folks?
Yeah. So Walls Furniture and Mattress. We are in Kokomo, Indiana. We've been in Kokomo for 7 years now, but I have done this for 31 years. It is a family business. My parents started a furniture store in Muncie, Indiana, right before I turned 16 years old. So quite some time spent in furniture. I only took a 1 year hiatus to work for another furniture store for about a year before I realized that no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for myself. So we are a mid price point furniture store. I like to say that we are the store that people come to when they want good value, they want a good price, but they also want somebody who is going to take care of them. It's going to give service after the sale if they have issues, which is oftentimes the thing that's missing from low and mid price point products. Something that the higher end customers are used to getting, but that the guys in the middle and the bottom, they just think, well, I'm not going to get that. If something goes wrong, I'm just going to have to go buy a new one. But we're not that store. Yeah.
You said that you took over the family business. So stepping into ownership requires a bit of a leap of faith,
Yeah.
Austin. So what was the biggest surprise between what you expected ownership to be like and what it's actually been like?
Well, I would say my parents, when they got into this business in the 90s, it was kind of like the wild, wild west in terms of making money in the furniture business. Things were going great. Companies were growing. Stores were popping up left and right. And, it was really a great time to be in. And I saw what my parents did and I thought, hey, this looks pretty easy. What I quickly realized when I got into the business as an owner in the mid 2000s was that the landscape was much, much more difficult. Right. There was a lot more competition.
Right.
We were starting to see some competition kind of creep in from online.
Right.
You kind of starting to see the beginnings of that.
Yeah.
That really kind of accelerated a little after 2010, but we were seeing it early on.
Hmm.
We were also seeing in the markets that we were in, factories closing and some kind of changing of the guard with regard to people's careers, And so I think I thought it was going to be a lot easier, I would say. And I quickly found out that that was not the case, that it was going to be a very tough, very competitive, you have to have a high tolerance for risk in this
Yes.
business. Yeah.
A common thing I hear is that it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be because
Yeah.
there's a lot of hats to wear, right?
Yeah, and you're signing your name on the dotted line for for loans and for lines of credit and things that you need to get going, and all of those things you're on the hook for,
Yeah.
even if you don't do well.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. The bank doesn't care if there isn't money available this week. The loan is still due.
that's correct. The payment is still due. Yeah.
Before the show, Austin, you shared that you're the sales manager, the warehouse manager, and the accountant right now. Earlier, you've gotten some other roles off of your plate and freed up some of those hats, but these ones are still the hats you're wearing, and it keeps pulling you into the day to day. So give us some context around that. What's happening today?
Yeah. Well, you and I've talked here recently. I've been on the delivery truck for 4 weeks. It has been quite a struggle to find the right person to go on the truck. Now, I could have hired anybody. I've interviewed maybe a dozen people. Just made a hire yesterday, like we spoke before I came on. He starts on Monday, but I didn't want to hire just anybody. I want somebody that's going to be the right fit, right? And so I've been on the truck for the last 4 weeks every day doing deliveries.
Yeah.
Some days that means 3 or 4 deliveries. Some days that means 7, 8.
Yeah.
On top of that, I still take care of my customers. So I still have service calls. I still have, things to fix or touch ups to do. And so I still have to fit all of that in too. So, on top of that, making sure that, when orders come in, that customers get called. I've got to, I've empowered my salespeople to be on the sales floor and sell, but they still require me to go out when I'm here in the store and
Yeah.
to talk to them and
Yeah.
ask them what's going on. What are
For
people
sure.
saying? What are they looking for? What are we missing? What do we need? And the same with the sales manager or with my office manager at the front desk saying, how are we doing? What are we doing for people? What needs to be done?
Yeah.
So I'm still constantly in that. Now it's not as involved in the sense that I don't have to be in the store
Yeah. Yes.
24/7.
Yeah.
That has allowed me to be on the truck and
Absolutely. Yeah.
deliver all day long, right?
Yeah.
And really for the store not to miss a beat, while I'm not in here. But I
And
still have to do those things as well. I
yeah,
still have
to
to
your
make sure that
point, right?
everybody knows I'm paying attention,
Yes. Yes.
and I need accountability and,
Yes.
tell me what's going on.
Yeah, that's super important is that people left to our own will always be less efficient and less effective than we are if we have somebody managing us, holding us accountable. And so with all of that, and you also are the accountant.
Yeah. Yeah. And, fortunately there, I have an accounting system, that makes that a lot easier for me. If I were to go back 10 years and look at what I was doing 10 years ago, I spent so much time on accounting.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, it would always be a mess to get everything to my accountant. Hey, your corporation. So March the 15th is coming up. Like we
Yeah.
got to, you don't have till April the 15th. We've
Yeah.
got to get this filed. You got to get this turned in earlier. And so, you're constantly trying to figure out, how do I do this in between everything else? And now I have a pretty good system. So when I get to the end of the year, and I turn everything into my accountant, I might have a day worth
Yeah.
of work
Fair. Good for you.
to reconcile all of my accounts and make sure, because I'm doing those things daily. So I am doing daily accounting, and then I'm going in and I'm doing monthly reconciliations, and I'm making sure that I'm clued in on exactly what's going on with my business all the time. What's my cash flow? What's my situation look like?
For you.
Yeah.
So, Austin, I know earlier that you got some things off of your plate and were able to delegate those. But today now, with you wearing the sales manager hat and the warehouse manager hat and the accountant hat, what is that? What's that keeping you from? How does that affect the business from an opportunity standpoint?
Well, sometimes a fresh set of eyes is important. Like I've said, I can see things now that I couldn't see 10 years ago. But even in that situation, there's a lot of things that I still don't see. I'm a victim of my past experiences. And, so sometimes I see things and I go, oh, I've already seen that before, where somebody might look at it completely different than I would and see a different solution than I would see. Right. So I think where we're at right now as a company is, you described that messy middle, right? Like
Yeah.
we're still solidly in that
Yeah.
messy middle because
Yeah.
we are not, we're too big to be a small business,
Yeah.
but we're too small to be a big business,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And really I could use, somebody to run the day-to-day operations of the business, but the sales where we're at just can't cover it, right?
Yeah. Fair.
So I need, and that's a difficult decision, right? Do you hire somebody for a position knowing that they're going to have to grow to keep that position, or do you try to grow it yourself to get to a position where you can hire somebody and step back? Well, the opportunity cost to me is that it's hard for me as an entrepreneur to dive into other businesses.
Mm,
And I do. I have two other side hustles that I do
yeah.
that don't get nearly as much attention as
Okay.
they need.
Yeah.
And both of those things could actually be very profitable for me if I
Okay.
could pour myself into them. So,
Fair enough. Yeah. So it
yeah.
sounds like working through this is definitely a priority for the year, so that you're able to get that time to be able to invest in your other explorations.
Yeah. Yeah.
For those listening, I'm Coach Tim Campson, and we work with business owners in the messy middle where the business outgrows how it's being run and keeps the owner too much in the day to day. So, Austin, what lesson do you wish you'd learned sooner as an owner to allow you to get out of the day to day? And what was the cost of not knowing that sooner?
Yeah, I think it would have been to empower people to have a feeling of ownership
Yeah,
of their job and their responsibilities. I think it took me too long to understand how to empower them to make those decisions without feeling like they had to come to me for them. So I would say that would be the biggest lesson that I've learned, is learning to trust people,
okay,
learning to trust that, that they're going to do the best that they can do, and they're going to do it because I have done a good job myself of pouring into them
yeah.
and giving them the confidence to do
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and trust is that's a big deal, right? You've created this, you've built this baby, you've created it, you've
Yeah.
figured, you've had all of your own lessons of figuring out how to do it well because of all the mistakes you learned through, and then it's like, and now I have to let go of all that and have somebody else make their own mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's been a big one, the trust thing. And I would also say too, not pushing too hard. There is such a thing as as good sustainable growth, right? Natural, organic, sustainable growth. There's definitely that concept, which I didn't see early. I thought early on that I would go in and I would see this growth immediately when we opened our first store in Anderson, Indiana. That was back in 2005, and I didn't get that right away. I was not very patient, and so I started another business in 2010, and that one took off. It did really, really well. So then I thought, okay, well, this is good. This I can duplicate. This is something that I can do in multiple places. And so I duplicated it 4 different times, and I failed every single time. I only succeeded the first time. That was
Yeah.
it. The
Yeah.
first one was the success. And so I think too, being a victim sometimes of that success when things happen quickly,
Sure.
and you go, oh, I can do this over and over and over again. I didn't give myself time to learn
Yeah.
why it
Yeah.
actually worked, and the formula wasn't there. What I tried to do, the duplication, I
Yeah.
wasn't duplicating the right formula.
Yeah. Yeah. I one of the things I see in that example is that it's hard to duplicate yourself.
Hmm.
Right. So if a lot of times the reason that the business is successful is because the owner's wearing all the different hats that you've already
Right.
shared with it, right? And so if you're wearing all the hats in location one, it's pretty hard to cut and paste yourself into location two, right?
Yes.
Something has to give until we get location one to the point that it can run without us. Now we can cut and paste that into location two.
Yeah. 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 That was a big problem, always finding the right people that could do the job in there. And then not understanding as well, I think, location, geography, population density, there were a lot of other figures that went in there. I thought, oh, that looks like a great location. I think the
Sure.
price
Yeah.
the price is about where I need it to be.
Yeah.
Everything else will fall in place. No.
Yeah.
No.
The fallacy of if we build it, they will come is
Right.
not correct, right?
No, there is a lot more planning and research that should go into it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Austin, in your journey when things have felt stuck or overwhelming, what changed when you brought in an outside perspective?
Well, outside perspective is key because again, we are as a society, I think a lot of times like stuck in a box.
Mm,
We have this box of ideas that's shaped by our past experiences. It's shaped by, whatever knowledge that we have.
yeah,
And none of that's a bad thing necessarily. Sometimes we're very, very good at, certain things, doing, very specific tasks or whatever. But in business, you learn that, the things that you're great at, those are the things you should do. The things that you're not great at, those are the things you should find somebody else to do. Right.
yes,
So I think that's the key with outside perspective. I get that from my wife a lot because
huh?
she's very different than I am.
Yeah,
And so she challenges me when we talk through things. Her ideas are very different than my ideas. My ideas are very logical and structured. And this follows this, follows this, follows this. And it has to all make sense. And sometimes her thoughts I describe like a spider web. I mean, it's just like it's all over the place. But in that process, she is so much more open-minded and she's going in a lot more different directions. She's
yeah,
open to a lot more possibilities than I'm open to.
yeah,
And I have to give that, a chance. And so, through compromise, a lot of times, I'll say, hey, look, that's not the way that I would do it. But I want you to experience this, through your lens. And so if you believe strongly that we should do this, we've done things my way so often.
sure,
Let's do it your way and let's see how it goes. She's the reason we have a point of sale system. She's
okay,
the reason we have an inventory system.
wonderful.
I fought that. I don't need it. It's right here. I know exactly what we have.
We in my world we call those things buying back your time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I invest in the POS, it frees up my time of not having to do it myself, right? I invest in an inventory system, I don't have to do it myself. The earlier you said too, like stay in your lane or focus on the stuff that you're good at. And right. So we have our clients do a time study and they track where are they spending their time every hour over a couple of weeks. And then we critique it together and go, all right, these things are $25 an hour jobs. Why are you doing that? And then we work through the excuses because we all have them, right? Nobody can
Right.
do it as well as me. It's just easier if I do it myself. but it's the opportunity cost. Right? Your worth to the organization is right, two or three or $500 an hour. So stop doing the $25 an hour jobs so that you can be
Yeah.
bringing in more, $500 opportunities. And so then it's, who do you delegate it to? Who do you outsource it to? Might we have to hire? And then of course financials come into play, but then you can do the compare and contrast, right? Well, if I had 10 more hours a week, right, or 5 more hours a week, I could be doing this strategic stuff, business building stuff, and that's going to more than pay for this new hire.
Yeah. Yeah. A great example of that. I've got a brother-in-law in business as well too, and he has always been way better at this than I am, at going out and getting large contracts or, building other business relationships. Whenever anybody asks me, who do you know in business? I say, well, I mean, I know some people, but I don't spend time cultivating those relationships. So I don't have that kind of relationship with other business owners where, he is in, all these different networking groups and he's meeting business owners all the time and making introductions and he's, referring business to this person. And he ends up, like I said, large contract jobs because of who he knows. As a business owner, I don't know that I could say that I've ever gotten one of those jobs because I'm so committed to the business and the day to day aspects of the business. I don't go out and I don't do that networking.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, you mentioned, right? It being in the messy middle. It's a natural, evolution, right? The messy middle is where we see the potential, but the business has grown to the point that it still relies a lot on us and right. And being able to grow through that, right? And get more people, delegate more things, free up more of our time. We start to transition from you know, owning a job to truly being a business owner where we can think big picture and strategically and network and all that stuff. But it's a natural part of the growth journey. And that's the whole point of our show. And so our show is called Self Made is a Myth because we know that no one gets there on their own. So Austin, I'd love to have you tell us then, who are the three people in your business owner journey that you wouldn't have achieved the successes that you have without them, and how they help you along the way?
Man, so I would say first and foremost, this is two people, but my parents, right? I was fortunate enough that my parents got into a business that was a good, lucrative business to get into. They did it, like I said, right before I turned 16, and they needed me to help them.
Yeah.
So I was pulled in immediately to be a part of this. I didn't really have a choice,
Yeah.
and that's great. I didn't mind. I actually liked getting paid.
Yeah.
So as a 16-year-old, that was nice.
Mhm.
Without my parents, I mean, my dad gave me the example of being a business owner. He always said he wanted to own a business. He didn't want to work in a business. So I got that side of it, which was great to see. And then my mother really was the engine that made it run, the day-to-day operations. And I think I learned a lot from her about work ethic, what it means to show up every day and what it means to truly be committed to making something work, right? So I would have to say those two, definitely kind of lumped into one. A great kind of yin and yang, representation of business owners, in the way that they went about doing things on a daily basis. My uncle JD Long. Actually, there are several businesses around Indianapolis and then south into Franklin and Bloomington, Indiana, that exist because of him. He sadly passed away a few years back, but he was the visionary that led a lot of people into the furniture industry.
Okay.
He got my parents into it. He got my aunt and uncle into it. There's a couple of stores in the Bloomington area that exist because of his leadership and what he did to inspire people to go out and create their own furniture stores. And there's a large store in Indianapolis, multiple stores actually, that grew out of another one of his ideas. He was just somebody inspiring in terms of business. And then where I'm at today, reps, friends, there's been a lot of people that have have helped me along. But another person who was a furniture rep, actually worked for my uncle in Bloomington for years. It's how I met him. Became a good friend of mine, was a rep for furniture lines for a long time for me, is the reason why I'm in Kokomo. Was at a time where I didn't know if I was going to continue on with his journey, and I was sharing my thoughts with him. He kind of poured into me and said, you can do this. I know you can. We just got to get you in the right place. And I know where that place is. I know where it
Mm.
is. And nobody else knows that it's going to be available. And I think the timing is right. And he introduced me to the gentleman that I bought this store from, that I'm in now. Sadly, Ronnie passed away. That was his name, Ronnie
Mm.
Goins. He passed away a couple of years ago too, so I lost him as well. But I've been fortunate to have people that believe in me, and people that inspire and pour into me, and that's what I want to do for the people around me. I want to do the exact same thing.
So, Austin, if those folks were with us here today, and I know a couple of them have already passed, but what would you want to say to them?
I mean, again, thanks for believing in me. Thank you for leading by example, showing what it means to be committed to something, and to, positioning your mind and your body and your energy to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. More than anything, just, yeah, thank you. Thank you for pouring into me and believing in me.
Austin, I appreciate your insights and transparency with some of the things that you've worked through and currently wrestling through. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
If you're stuck in the messy middle, there's a way through it, and you don't need to figure it out on your own. Our 2-week coaching trial helps you to see exactly what's holding you back and how to change to alleviate that. The link is in the description below. And if this conversation resonated, like it, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. I'll see you all next time.